Men, we are in a great war, and you are in a battle. God made you to stand and fight and to build his kingdom. Jesus shows us how to do both. Join us as we together follow him, the blueprint for men. Hey everybody, glad you are here. This is a new year, new podcast, and we are joining, we're doing some new things. So this is our refresh and restart for the new year. I hope everybody had a great Christmas time and look forward to a new year. A lot of things happening early in the year for the world. And we've been talking, me and Marty, a lot about what we're going to be up to for the new year as well. And we're really excited here in future episodes to bring some of those updates to you. But today we're going to just talk about some of the updates that we have for our podcast. We're going to add, I guess you could say, an episode. We're going to plan to publish twice a week for as long as we can, a couple different versions of the podcast. And so I want to highlight what those are. You've got the interview, which is this one here today. That'll be once a week. And then we'll also be doing a teaching one that Marty will be doing as well. You've probably heard some of those in the recent past, but we're going to start publishing those. And he's been really wanting. He's got so much content in that mind of his and all the experience, and we want to get that out. We haven't decided what we're going to call that segment yet. I am advocating for the mind of Marty, but we haven't landed on a decision yet. So, but anyway, Marty, what do you have like in mind in terms of how you would like that to look and how that might go across?
Well, let's just we've got a guy here that's joining us, James Milam, and we're going to be doing a lot of interviews this year on a weekly basis because in the end, what we get in an interview is a testimony. And we know when all is said and done for us as men, the greatest thing we have is, as Revelation states, is the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And so the more testimonies that we can have on this podcast, I am firmly convinced the more powerful this platform is. And so we're going to be reaching out to regular guys, to people of really fame that we're going to get plugged into this podcast, people that we know that are near and dear, some that we don't know that well. But James is somebody that I've gotten to know James over the last number of months. And we're going to be getting into interviewing him. But some of the other things we're going to do during 2025 is to have that interview segment every week, but also do a short teaching. Some of my teachings in the past would kind of go long. I'm going to try to be a little bit more concise and contained because I know that guys are busy. And long form works well with interviews. For teaching, it starts being like a classroom. And, I did my share of 50-minute class periods, hour-and-a-half long class periods. I've even done some 3-hour type stuff.
Wow.
And, you feel sorry for the students. So I've got to kind of tighten it up a little bit. And but I'm really looking forward to just the new year, new challenges, and new opportunities. So that's what I'm really looking for in this podcast. And I'm just thrilled that Mike is here to take the lead on helping to produce and connect with all these people that we're going to interview. So we're going to follow a theme this year that's going to center around a whole framework that we're working hard at, and that's the blueprint system. So the first quarter of this year is going to be focused on what we call our core strength. Some of you may be familiar with a book over my shoulder here, Morning Summit. Is a book that Grant Graves and I kind of co-wrote, and it follows the metaphor of climbing a mountain. And so it's got a lot of challenges in it, but the central part of that small group curriculum is a quarterly habit building that's centered around this core part of your life, which is really mental, physical, spiritual, and social or relational. So really the first quarter of the year, the first 3 months, are going to be starting with spiritual in the first month of January. The second month in February is going to be the mental or the emotional. It's a big part of our lives. And then the third month, March, is going to be about the physical. And so we're going to have experts and regular guys that are going to talk about these different dimensions of life. It's our core. I was talking to and here I am going. I was talking to a young man in Pakistan this morning, and later on, just an hour later, I was talking to a ministry leader in Uganda. And both of them, it was interesting how that conversation led to talking about this bullseye thing. In fact, I'm gonna just I drew it on a piece of cardboard. Okay, so everybody's this kind of a deal here.
It's upside down, Marty.
Upside down. Okay,
there you go.
I'm dyslexic upside down wise. So anyway, you've got the core, which is your mental, physical, and spiritual. That's the number one area. Number two would be your intimate relationships, which would be your spouse, if you're married, your children. And then going out to the third layer is going to be everybody else, everything from maybe what you're doing in ministry to the workplace. So really this first quarter is going to be, who are you? And let's get that part really strong. And then when we get that right, the chances are very good for doing the rest of the year. So that's going to be our point. And James is going to be bringing to us our first interview that a lot of the questions are going to be revolving around this spiritual piece. And so that's what I'm really excited about. And that was a longer answer than probably you were expecting, Mike, but there we go.
Well, this has been on our minds. We've been talking about this for a number of weeks. If you might have noticed, we haven't published an episode for some time. And part of that reason is not just because Marty's over the top busy, but also because we've been thinking about how can we make this consistent? What can we do for the formatting to make sure it's something that's going to be very easy to consume, but also very highly valuable for guys? The other format that I want to make sure to mention, this is new to this podcast and the ministry but it's also something I've seen done before in other podcasts, is I'm calling it Ask Marty Anything. And
it's dangerous.
I know. And so what I would like to
I might make up some answers on.
Well, so you're going to have a chance to see the answers. I mean, we could kind of vary between only I see the questions and then pop them to you, or you can get them ahead of time. We'll experiment with that.
Yeah, we'll have fun.
So what I want guys to do listening to this, I'm going to compile, I don't even know what number of questions before, probably no more than 4 or 5, because that'll take up an hour, I'm sure, of just what questions do you have for Marty? Anything about living as a man in this world, anything about manhood that within the Christian experience for sure, that Marty you can answer. I'm sure he'd have some answer for it, and we can talk about it back and forth. So to get that to us, email me, mike.hansen, Hansen, at blueprintformen.org. So, and I'll make sure that's included in our show notes today so that we can get that started. So once we have a number of questions, we will record and publish. Can't tell you exactly when that's going to be or how often they'll get going. I'd like to think that could be, pretty regular, but that'll depend on you guys out there if you want to ask any questions to Marty. All right. So with that, let's go into our time with James. You know what's funny? When I was emailing James, he has an email. I'm not going to say the exact email, but it includes Saint John is a part of his email. I thought that was kind of funny. And so James is St. James, sorry, not John. Did it say John or James?
It's John. I'm James, but it's John. Yeah. Some people
What-
get confused. Like, is your name John or James? No, I'm just.
what is
that's
it?
in the Bible scripture?
Oh, I know. Okay. Well, then it's okay. I'm not going to say what the email is, but my mind went to it's St. James, but maybe you could have used the Book of James. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we've got a saint here on our program with James here. So
That's right.
James, looking forward to hearing from you today, and I'm sure I'll pop up with some questions, but I'll let Marty start it off here. You guys have known each other for a little while, and I'd love to hear how you two got connected.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. So Mike will pop in once in a while. This is a dynamic. We don't have a script. It's kind of free form, and that's the way we like it. Spirit leads. And so we've prayed before this podcast even began. And so we're just asking God to bless the listener, each one of you,
Amen.
because it's not about us. It's about Jesus. And that's the blueprint that we're really focusing on how can we live lives like Jesus, what he's calling us to live. So James, let's get into unpacking your life. You've been in ministry, but you've got a journey that brought you to where you're at. So tell us a little bit about who is James Milam, and that name. It took me a little while to get. How do you spell your last name? Because it's one I'd never heard of.
Okay, it's a Milam, Milam, kind of like Milan, Italy, but just an M on the end, like in the front. And a lot of people, they'll call me Milam, because that's, but the way I like to say my last name, I figured something out in the course of my ministry that I love sharing with people how to pronounce my last name. And it says, just Jesus is my lamb. And there's how you pronounce my last name. So,
that helped me when you told me that. I said, that sticks. I got a visual. It's easy.
Just put a B at the end of your name there. And
a silent B. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
So most recently, you have been a pastor. And right now, you can tell us about that, of course, and we'll get into that. But the way we connected was that you have felt a calling on your heart to do something that very few men have the courage to do. But I've talked to a lot of guys that go, man, that is so cool. I'm glad you're doing that. But to have the courage to step in and do this, what is it that God's calling you to do?
Well, in my last 13 years of pastoral ministry, I always was drawn to an aspect of ministry, and it was men's ministry. When I was in Texas, I was part of the men's ministry team and really, really loved it, engaged in it. And then when I came to my new conference, they said, hey, we haven't had a men's ministry here for many years. Would you like to go ahead and start something up for us from scratch? And of course, I like a good challenge, and I didn't realize how much of a challenge it'd be, but I loved every moment of it.
Yeah.
But as I was doing that, I was still feeling a stronger draw towards men's ministry, a passion towards it, and feeling like, this may be my calling, is to zero in that target in on that aspect of ministry. With pastoral ministry, there's a lot of blessings came from it, but I feel like maybe my strongest suit is within the aspect of men's ministry. So as the conference men's ministry director, it just got me into that more, and started feeling, how God does. He'll start with something small, and then he just starts increasing until it's undeniable. You're like, okay, I better look into this and see if that's what he's calling me to do. Now, how I found out about you is I was conducting a seminar at one of our churches here in the conference, and a guy from your conference showed up. A guy named, can I share his name?
Sure.
Okay, Edwin Dysinger, I think I said that right. He was there with his cousin, I believe, and he was listening to my presentation. I was out there with the men. We were out there overlooking the Buffalo River. It's great. And afterwards, he came to me and said, you know what? Do you know Marty Miller? I said, no, I've never heard of the guy. He said, do you know Blueprint for Men? I said, nope, never heard of it. He said, well, that's strange because everything you're saying is about exactly what he teaches. When he said that to me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to need to find out this Marty Miller. I'm going to see about this guy, and reached out to you. And the rest is up to this point is history as far as that goes.
Yeah, it's interesting that the one thing I've been impressed about you, James, is you're a man of action and not just talk.
Yeah,
and that has value in my mind. There's a lot of people that talk and have ideas, but to make things happen, it takes another level. And so you said, hey, I'm going to come out. And I'm going to come visit you. And it's not like you live next door.
Right.
Where is it that you live? Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm in Hot Springs, Arkansas right now. So I'm about 7 hours from your front door.
Yeah.
Almost 8 hours.
So you drove over here with your wife, and we had a close to a 3-hour conversation in our living room. Had a great time.
Yep.
And then you took a little bit, maybe a day or two. You went over to the North Georgia mountains and had a good time just getting away. And, but just, that this guy drove intentionally to spend some time. And then just recently, you came back out this way to experience another layer, getting involved with our big group, because you're a small group leader now on our online platform. And then also just meeting up out here when we have the Forge at the Outpost.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, and just, you shared some words, and we had a great group that night, and you were a blessing. So, you're a man of action. And so, I don't know, let's go back earlier in your life, James, because we are an extension of our past.
Yeah.
Good and bad, But let's go back to the early years. Tell us about those formative years of your earliest, like up into your early elementary years. What kind of life did you experience? What were your parents like, siblings? What did you love doing? What kind of stuff really got you excited about life?
Okay. Well, I'd like to just piggyback real quick on you saying we're an extension of our past. I like the story of Moses. Moses, he was raised up to be a leader in Egypt. Then he was sent out of the wilderness for 40 years, and then he led the people. God used every bit of his experience for his current experience. So I want to say to men that whatever path you've been on, God can use every bit of it, piece it together to make sure you're on the right path he wants you to be on. So I look back now on my past and see things. It's like I was running from God in ways, but I see how he used it now to shape me to be the man that I am today. God will take, Romans 8:28, he'll make all things work out for the good of those that love him. And back then I didn't realize I loved him, but I know now that I do. And he's taken these things, a lot of, we all live life. It gets dirty. It gets, messy. And mine certainly has more than most, I think. But yeah, to go back, I'll kind of try to condense it, shorten it. I was born and raised Seventh-day Adventist in the Seventh-day Adventist faith. I was raised in a mixed family. My mother and my father married, later my stepmother, and which we call her my mother because I was 5 when she came in the picture. But she brought in a couple sisters, and we were like, everybody called us the Brady Bunch because we were a mixed family, But we didn't know any better. This is what we knew from little. So, there was never this step or half brother and sister with brother and sister. And it just worked out really good in that way. But, raised Seventh-day Adventist church. But, like many young men, caught that the enticement of the world. And by age 18, I decided that, that's the path I wanted to pursue. And as soon as I had a chance to walk away from the church, I did. And, I like to blame it on external things, the people treated me this way or that way. But no, it was me. It was my decision. Ultimately, I wanted to get out there and experience these things. And, with that comes consequences. And I've had more than my share of consequences with it. But so when I did that, I left the house and I joined the Army. It was during Desert Storm. I always, from a young age, I wanted to be a soldier. That was something I wanted to be. World War II was something that as a little kid, I'd get in encyclopedias and just study it and look at it and whatever. So here we go. We're entering into a war, and here I'm, 19 years old or whatever. And this patriotic thing, so I'm going to go fight for my country. So I join up, and I never went. Halfway through training, we had defeated the enemy. That was Desert Storm. It was a 2-week war.
That was a very quick campaign.
It was a very quick campaign.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I was really thankful, too, because when I got to my duty station after airborne school, they started coming back from the desert, and they were telling me how you get sand in places you would never even know you had. And so they were telling me, all the bad. I was like, well, I'm glad I didn't go as far as that goes. But in the military, I went through airborne school, and at that time, I've seen God's hand in protecting me, even though I was running from him. I about lost my life in airborne school. On my 5th jump, my chute didn't open all the way.
Wow.
And so I have a third of my chute balled up in the risers. I'm trying to shake it out. I'm looking around. It's a combat jump, so I got hundreds of guys in the sky with me. I'm looking around at them, and it's like, I think I'm coming around the same rate as they are. Well, from the ground looking at it, I was burning in. So my CO and XO saw that, and they come over. I land like a sack of, I had full combat gear, full combat equipment, and I just hit. That's where I actually, my knee just blew out the ACL in that. But on top of that, those guys said, you know what, James, you didn't pull your reserve chute, which I didn't. And I thought about it. But if you don't pull that reserve chute and throw it down in a way just right, it comes up at what you do have. It's called a cigar roll, and then you have nothing.
Oh.
And so I didn't trust myself to throw that reserve chute down in a way just right. So I'm like, I'm going to ride this out. Well, I landed pretty hard, and they just stood over and they said, soldier, if you don't get off this run off this drop zone, you're going to be court-martialed. So I ran the whole drop zone, 100 yards plus or whatever, crying the whole way. Because, here, my knee's just destroyed. But I was not going to get court-martialed. But this is just E1 private, and they drill in your head and basic training that, you don't want to get court-martialed. That's the end of your life. So Anyway, so that's the military. I got out of the military. While I was in the military, I married my high school sweetheart, and brought her out to North Carolina. That's why I was at Fort Bragg. I spent all my time there. And, we did as young. She was 19 and I was 20, I think, when we got married. So young and dumb and do a lot of stupid things. But anyway, we did that. And then after my 5 years in the military, got out and got into construction. My father-in-law was a stonemason. And he said, well, come join the union. You can be a hod carrier. You can learn this trade. And that's how I got into construction. And then from there, that company went under after I did a while, learned how to be a stonemason. I was like, you know what? I see I can do this. But I had $100 in my pocket. That's about all I had. But a lot of determination and people telling me I couldn't do it. And that's always for me. Tell me, if you want me to do something, tell me I can't. So I did that. And, within just a few years, we turned our first million, and, periodically after that, did a couple million a year. So, but I'm running away from God this whole time. I'm born and raised Seventh-day Adventist, running from God. And, sex, drugs, and rock and roll was my lifestyle. That's what I wanted.
Yep.
And it was ridiculous, but that's what I wanted, and that's what I got. And what did they say, when you get a lot of money and you're dumb? I think the saying is, a fool and his money are soon parted. Well, yep. Yeah. Hey, here to tell you that's true. Around 2008, there was a housing a crisis, a bubble. The real estate market went down, right? And I was, faster in the construction business, and I had, almost $200,000 of receivables out there just waiting to get work we done, stuff we paid for, waiting to get in, and people stopped paying. Well, same process. My going out, good time Charlie, going out with my buddies, drinking beer at night and all that kind of stuff. My wife was getting tired of it, quite honestly. And she gave me an ultimatum at that same time. She's like, yeah, I'm done with this. She was not raised in a Christian faith at all. And the only thing she knew about Christianity was when we would go home to visit my parents on vacation, out of respect for my parents, I would go to church with them. So the only church she knew was Seventh-day Adventist Church. She starts feeling this call to go to church. So she looks up a local Seventh-day Adventist church, starts taking our kids while I'm still out doing my thing. The Holy Spirit every day is saying, James, you know better. Here she is. She don't know what she's doing. She's going to church. You know better, and look what you're doing. So he's beating me up. And then when she gave that ultimatum, I was like, you know what? My whole world was crumbling, everything.
Yeah.
And that's what God does. Sometimes when you think you're your own God, money is your God, he's going to show you really who God is. Right. And he did. He brought me to my knees, and I'm very thankful for it. So I started going to church, and as that goes, it seems like every sermon that preacher preaches is exactly pointed at you. It's like he's talking to me. So at that point, I made my commitment to recommit my life to the Lord. I said, I'm going to go through all these Bible studies. I'm going to go through it fresh. I was baptized at age 11, yep. But, at age 11, I meant it,
Sure.
But it really was a real thing when I went back through it all and made the decision as an adult for myself. But God knows me. I'm prone to wander. And he's like, well, we're not just going to let you come back in and stay there. I want you to go into pastoral ministry. I did not want to go in pastoral ministry. I am not a public speaker. No. I really, Moses, I'm alongside him there. He's like, Lord, no, come on, please. And wouldn't let me go. And I threw a lot of fleeces out there to see, and opened the door for me to go to college. I never wanted to go to college. I was like, I'll make it through life on my own. But in order to be a minister, that was the deal. So
how long was it between your first, when you first heard God suggest that to where you was like, okay,
it was pretty quick.
Was it really?
So I got baptized in April. After the Bible says, after I got baptized, I was already on my way to Southwestern because my uncle was a conference president. I said, hey, here's what I'm hearing, what I do with it. And he said, well, why don't you go down to Southwestern, talk to those professors and see what they think. Well, when I got down there, talked to them, he said, yeah, you need to be here. But it was a miracle just for me to be there because one, I graduated high school with a 1.7 GPA because I hated school. And then also I had to write my life story. And in that, they read that. It's like, oh, we don't know. They had to have a whole board get together and decide whether they wanted me on their campus. So I was put on academic and moral probation for the first 8 months just because of my past. But yeah, so it was April, I got rebaptized. By August, I was enrolling in Southwestern Adventist University. Packing up the family, didn't know anything we were doing. We just knew this was God through various fleeces being fulfilled. This is what he wanted for us to do, and it was a whirlwind journey for sure.
And so what year was this, and how old were your kids? Because this is, a non-traditional pathway of what everything is non-traditional. You know what I mean? And
Yes,
most
absolutely.
people, they go through a college degree program, they go on to be a minister, and they get their marriage and kids, and there's a certain sequence that things just, this is bass backwards, it's like, what are we doing here? So what time frame, how old are your kids, what's going on?
That was God turned me around to around 2008, somewhere between 2008 2009. I got baptized April 2009. August 2009, I was entering into theology school. My kids at the time were, my son was 11 and my daughter was just entering into high school during that time. So it was quite a transition for them. I mean, here they went from having everything, whatever, to having nothing.
And you were in, right before that, where were you at, in North Carolina?
Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas City, okay.
That's hometown for us.
Okay, good.
So that's where the business was. After I left North Carolina, I went back home to Kansas City. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Cool. As you were talking about your military service and stuff and your age and everything, you and James have some commonalities, in that regard. I'm sure you guys have talked about that with yours in the Navy, Mike, and
Air Force.
Yeah, the Air Force.
Not the same.
I knew I liked you, Mike. I tell you what, the Air Force guys, Army guys, I always got along with. Man,
right.
If you're a Marine, forget about it. That was
Marine for me. Air Force.
Yeah,
I also mobilized for Desert Storm as well, but we didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you were about 10 years removed from my experience over at Southwestern in Keene, Texas. There, I was in the late 90s in my ministry training.
Okay. Gotcha. Nice. I was full blown construction at that time.
So what was it like when I first? When I first walked onto Southwestern's campus, I'd never set foot on a Christian school campus at any point in my life.
Okay.
So I had a wonderful experience of just all the neat people I met. And I'm wondering, what was your experience being, living on, well, you probably didn't, did you live on campus since you had a family?
No, we lived off campus. We lived in Burleson. So,
okay. And I didn't live on campus either. I lived in an apartment in Keene, but
okay.
What was it like for you just getting immersed in that study of theology?
I tell you what, it was strange because here I'm 40 some years old. I'm going, kids, school kids are my daughter's age, just basically. Yeah. So that was strange. So you felt kind of like, but yeah, it's just the theology. I was so fresh and new back into the church. I was so excited about it. I was just like a sponge. Everything I could get my hands on, every book I could read, everything. I felt that I needed to play a lot of catch up. I spent 18 years running from God. I needed to make up for those 18 years that I ran away. So I spent a lot of that time, definitely in books and, just trying to play catch up, really. So didn't have a lot of experience with the people there. Had some great theology professors at the time. And these were guys more close to my age. So I, more related to them more than the kids. But it was nice with the kids because it allowed me an opportunity to mentor some of them, seeing them going in some directions that I had just came out of. And I could let them know, hey, this is where you're going. This is where it ends up. Man, turn around now. Don't you think,
James, that you actually see that as a first taste of ministering to younger men?
It was. I think that probably, now you talk about it, it probably was one of those things where I felt a bit of the calling for that particular part of ministry. Yeah.
Yeah, just it felt like that has real substance, that has real connection on an authentic level. When you're dealing with younger people, but really anybody, there are times in your life where you're at that fork in the road and you need to make some choices. And I believe that if our radar is, working and we're aware and being led by the Spirit, these opportunities, when they come, we don't miss them. If we are not aware, we miss them all the time, and there's so much joy in that. So that's just what I want to say. And anybody listening to this podcast, it's like we all have these opportunities, and there's so much joy in it, don't you think?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. The thing is that's how God designed it.
Exactly.
The more you give out, the more you're going to get to come back in.
That's right.
You can't outgive God in that way. And that's, as a pastor, this is what I tell people. I said, if you are being attacked in any way, if you're hitting some depression, if you're going through something, you do your best to seek out somebody that's going through the same type thing, and you minister to them. You pray for them. You show them God, whatever. And in the course of doing that for them, you're going to get what you need for your own issue. 100% of the time, that's remedy.
It's interesting. My wife and I, we went out to lunch today, went to our favorite little Thai restaurant, and saw a guy that I hadn't seen in a while, and I didn't recognize him. Mm-hmm. He was so gaunt. He had a beard for as long as I'd known him, and he shaved his beard, and he just looked terrible. And, you don't tell somebody, hey, you look terrible.
Right, yeah.
But I put my hand on his shoulder, and we just started a conversation. There was a bunch of people around their table, people that we knew. My wife was talking with some other people at the other end of the table, and I just kind of pulled up a chair and started talking to this guy. And he had been a blue-collar worker all his life. He had worked in construction trades, and then he had worked at Southern in what's called, a service department. So everything having to do with cleaning the campus, basically, and moving furniture around and stuff that's kind of thankless work many times, but very important. And during his years and let me just back up, he's got stage 4 cancer right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it doesn't look good. And he's just going through a lot. But, when you hit those kind of PTSD moments where you go, this is not going to turn out well, and barring a miracle, you're looking back at life. A lot of people are calling him up, and a lot of former students that worked for him and telling him how much they appreciated his friendship, his mentoring, the guidance. He wasn't a professor, but he had such tremendous influence because of the type of work he was doing. And he got that, and he connected with those students. So I guess I'm making a little advertisement here, connecting to your story. Wherever we're at in life, these are some of the most important things, because as he's looking back on life, he's going, my life mattered.
Yeah. And that helps him in his current time.
Totally.
Yeah. When you re-look at it a different way, the fact that was brought to them that way, that's going to be a blessing to him.
Exactly.
You look back and say, yeah. So
let me go back and ask another question from earlier in life, because, you got to 18 and you indicated you just like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm going to go out and do what I want to do and live the life of rock and roll and whatever.
All that. Yeah.
Yeah. All that. And, kind of go to the far country.
Yeah.
What in your early life, your experience with religion, with God, brought you to that point? Every man goes through a journey with doubts and questions and rebellion. And what led you to that point?
It never was doubt. I've always had, I always look at things logically. So as I learned and grew, it just made sense to me, the Bible, everything. I never doubted anything that we believed. But me, it was rebellion. I was in charge of me. I wanted to stay in charge of me. Right. And then I got to the point, I was like, I'm not a hypocrite either. I mean, I'm either all in or I'm all out.
There you go.
If I'm going to hell, I'm going in a Cadillac, bro. I'm not going to play around. And I come into church, I'm all in.
Yeah,
that's just my personality, I guess. But rebellion, it was selfish. Just I want to do what I wanted to do, and nobody didn't tell me any different.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't know, Mike, you have any thoughts on that? You kind of had your own path that was similar but different.
Well, yeah, I didn't grow up with any church or religion, so I
Okay.
I'm almost the opposite. At 20 years old, I chose God and chose the church.
Wow. That's amazing
So-
testimony to me because I had no interest.
Yeah.
Well,
But see, this is an interesting study, that you have two different men, similar life pathways, but different timings, these decisions, because I think too often with our young people, they see this confliction of freedom and God. I know this past fall, we had several men's retreats that were all built around, built for freedom, that we are made to experience freedom. But growing up, I don't care how hard you try as a parent or as a pastor to paint a picture of God being love and he gives freedom. There's something about that journey of growing through the teenage years that you see restriction.
Yeah.
You see he's a killjoy.
Yeah.
And I want to experience this other stuff.
Yeah. Well, and part of it, and I think they mean well. Our parents and leaders mean well by it, but
Sure.
I think it's a very detrimental is they help put you in a position where you start thinking and saying, I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do this. If we would train the minds a little bit to more that I don't want to because I love God, things like that. So
Right.
I think I got into a lot of you can't do this, you can't do this. And that took where it took over my mind and so I can't do that. And I want to get out and do what I can't do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want, and that's another thing I should change that, play a mental game on yourself. Change the I can't to I don't want to. And
Right.
yeah, they give you a head start in the right direction.
Cool.
Just within
Cool.
yourself, right?
I don't know if Mike, you have any thoughts on that with your own journey?
No, I mean, my journey included going from not knowing anything about God to within about 5 years pastoring churches. And so,
Fast track, I guess. Same here.
yeah, so I'm curious, you transitioned out of ministry training to ministry itself professionally. So how did that go for you? And did your family know what they were getting into as well?
No. My wife definitely didn't know what it took to be a pastor's wife. My son was young enough, man. He was at that point where right before dad doesn't know anything, he was in, he's all on board, So that worked out pretty good. And my son, he's always just been an obedient kid. That's probably, we always said, oh, that kid's obedient. That's the deal. But for me, it was a fast track because my senior year at school, they went ahead and hired me at Texaco Conference, hired me to pastor a 3-church district while I'm still going to school for my senior year. So all week long, we would I'd go to school there at Southwestern, but then come Friday afternoon, drive 3 hours to Abilene, Texas. The conference set us up with a house, and then there's another hour and a half south San Angelo. So every other week, I was doing San Angelo from that house in Abilene. So for a whole year, I'm learning during the week and pastoring on the weekend. And as soon as I got out of there, my first calling was to a 700 plus member church to be the only pastor in Houston, Texas.
Wow.
So trial by fire, but, jumped into it. But I had the background of in my construction business. At one point I had 65 guys working for me. So I had some background in that thing, but yeah, I went straight from school that last year learning and pastoring at the same time. But this is like, here you go. And, but it allowed me to really, really rely upon God and realize that I needed the Holy Spirit for every aspect of it, or I would fail miserably. So,
right.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing I got out of just relying on asking the Holy Spirit, please help with this, every little thing. Yeah.
So my wife has her roots in Texas. She was born and spent quite a bit of time in Houston. And so when you said you spent time there, and my wife came from the Dallas-Fort Worth area as well. And so I know kind of those areas pretty well. We were married actually in Burleson, Texas, 40 years ago. Hard to believe, but that was because that was where she was from. We got married back there. So yeah, let's just transition in your interview testimony here. When you think about life, back to my see if I can get this right. The 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, in life, you've got your core area, your family, and then out here, your work. But if we take this as the same illustration for a career path, I think that most of the time, this would be like your military. Oh, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go, oh, maybe I want to do this pastoring thing. I feel called to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then now it seems like we're zeroing in on something that is it's another step in faith, a calling that you can't say no to.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that. How I don't know what you want to share on that, but just kind of moving towards that, because I relate. I think Mike's relating to that as well. You get to that latter phase in your career path, and you go, God, what have you equipped me to do?
Right.
That is it uniquely prepared me. And I know you're calling me to do this because I have a contribution that you're wanting me to make. And I cannot not say yes. I've got to say yes.
Yeah. Well, for me, many people ask me in a lot of ways, a lot of things, they can Mr. Oblivious. I'm
Mr. Oblivious?
Oblivious, absolutely. I can be oblivious to things, especially sometimes when God's trying to steer you in a direction. But I'm always, hindsight's 20/20. When I look back, I was like, oh yeah, okay. And I can see that path that he's leading me on. And you looking back on this current path of stepping out in faith into men's ministry full time, I can now look where God led me through the course of that 13 years of pastoral ministry, little things here and there that he was on the side without me knowing, training me, preparing me for this move. And then, through series of circumstances, the door opened for me to make a decision, what's next.
Right.
And, and right around all that time, this is where I start meeting you. And the Lord's just kind of opening doors without, bright lights on it, saying, yeah, step through this, but opening doors. And I'm always been one to investigate any doors that open because I want to follow God's will for my life. I do understand that. I learned that when I moved into pastoral ministry instead of staying in Kansas City and trying to revive the construction business. So I'm looking at those doors and I start to walk through a little bit, and this one just keep opening more. I explored a few other things, and the doors would close, and so that's kind of how I operate with God. Open as many doors are available to me. In this case, I had about 3, and in the course of months, he's closing some and kind of open the men's ministry one much wider. I'm like, okay, and that's one of the things I learned from that pastoral jump from the world to construction is to step out in faith. It's fairly easy for me to step out in faith in that way because I've already experienced it. On paper, when we got down there, we didn't even know where we were going to live. God opened the door for where we live. On paper, my wife was making $10 an hour and had me and two kids in Advanced education. On paper, we were $800 in the hole financially. But we said, God, what we're going to do is we're going to trust you. We're going to tithe the first fruits, everything. We're going to put our tithe in no matter what. We're not going to ask anyone for money. We're going to trust you. Put us on this journey. You'll take care of it. And I tell you, for those 4 years, he did in some of the most amazing ways. If I could share a testimony. Just one thing is I love this when I tell people about being faithful to God in their offerings. I don't remember what the bill was, but we needed about like $487.10. Okay. So we, as was customary, me and my wife, we took it to the Lord. Lord, we need this. We don't have it. We don't know how to get it. And we just sat back and then we decided, wait, because that's how we had operated. Well, around the time that it needed to be paid, I get a envelope in the mail. I got a letter from my sister. And my sister sent me a check, not for $500. My sister sent me a check for $487.10.
No.
Yes. And so I called her. I said, how did you know we needed that money? She said, last week, the Lord woke me up and said, send this amount to your brother.
Oh, my goodness.
Come on, guys.
That's just
It wasn't $500 to come. No, it was to the dime, brother. HF.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
a testimony. That is a testimony.
Oh, it's as powerful it gets. So with that kind of testimony, to step out in faith and knowing that, okay,
Right.
I don't know how we're going to finance all this. I don't have a clue. And God's opening some doors and we're seeing a little bit, but I'm just going to keep walking because if it's his will, it's his will.
Yep.
And but I got to do my part. I got to.
That's right.
Yeah. I don't just sit back and, wish and hope and but
you're not going to be that guy sitting on the roof and the floods all around. The helicopter comes and you say,
"Get out of here! God's going to get me.
God's going to take care of me." Well, maybe the helicopter's for you,
right?
Oh man, that's just a classic.
Yeah.
Now when it comes to your call right now to enter the men's ministry arena. Tell us a little bit about what you feel specifically God's calling you to do. There's so many different ways to reach out to men, to minister to men, to rally the troops.
Yeah.
And just tell us kind of where things have gone the last couple of years and where things are at right now.
Okay. Well, the foundation of what I do is, I was in the Army, but I wasn't just in the Army. I was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the most highly trained fort we were trained. We had to be anywhere in the world within 18 hours. That's not get ready with 18 hours. You're going to be boots on the ground in 18 hours from the time you're notified. So we're always in a high state of readiness. So the logistics at Fort Bragg are above and beyond anything else you'll know. And I was a student of that and watched that and see the organizational structure, special forces groups. There are 12 special forces groups out there. So you watch these guys, you watch how they work. And it was amazing to me. I loved it, watching these logistics. And so what I do always has kind of that military foundation to it. Now, interesting thing, when I first started coming back into the church in Kansas City, there was a men's group there. And old fella, and I'm going to, his name is Mel Simmerman, and he had named it Band of Brothers. And these old fellas took me in, young guy, and man, they made me feel so special. They mentored me. They worked with me. Here I'm a guy just coming out of the world, fresh out of, lifestyle of, heavy drinking, all this kind of stuff. And they just took me in and loved me and helped show me in the way. So Band of Brothers, that's where that started. Now, when I was given the call to be the men's ministry director here and start something fresh, I knew automatically it's going to have to be Band of Brothers. Between the military background and then that tribute to Mel, what he did for me in my earliest formative time coming back into the church,
right.
Him and the fellows they did for me. So that's what I'm doing right now. I've put together a program, Band of Brothers, that what I want to do is get out to the men. I really, if I want to get to the heart of it, I want these men to understand if you will submit to your Creator, allow yourself to be shaped by Him, to be the man that He intended you to be, to fulfill the mission that He has for you. God has a mission for every man. We have special gifts. We have special callings. What He has for Marty is not the same for James. Now, it'll intersect, and we can work together, and that's what we're called to do. But He has something for each of you that He had for me. And and that's what I loved about what you guys are doing. When I got in and look at Blueprint, I was like, man, here's all the resources. Here's all these guys, your education background. This is not my background. I can barely type. I'd rather handwrite something than, put myself through the trouble of typing. But what you have, I said, man, this is it. As I'm going on this journey, it's like, this is what needs to be a core heart of what we do as Band of Brothers. And I felt that camaraderie. That's one thing I missed about the military, was that close camaraderie with my brothers, that we were training to go to war together. So we'd have each other's back like no other experience I had. And I want that for men in the church, because we are going to war. Right. We're going to war together, and there's no time for us to fight each other. We need to be able to have each other's back like it's our own. And that's really the heart of Band of Brothers, is to bring these guys together. My intention is to visit as many churches as possible, help them start up a chapter of Band of Brothers in this church, show them how they can do it, get them plugged into Blueprint individually and corporately as a group, so they can go through the resources and programs you guys have, because every one of us have issues. We have struggles. And I found in Blueprint, there's a lot of ways to address those struggles and help men overcome those.
Cool.
So that's why I'm enjoying this. We're still trying to figure that out, how this is going to work, but I'm enjoying where we're at right now. And it's a journey we got, and God's going to show us exactly how to do it when he wants to.
I think that, in the end, ministry is inherently reaching out to somebody that's in need.
That's
and
right.
Men's ministry is a term that's like oil and water. They don't mix.
Right.
Ministry to men, a man has to admit he's weak. He has to admit that he's got issues. He needs help. And so, I just received an email yesterday from a guy over in Africa, a men's ministry leader in Africa. And he did a survey. This is over in Uganda. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because this is a universal plight of men in today's modern world.
Okay.
So he did a survey of 248 men. And out of this survey, he was trying to see if they were leading out in worship in their home. And I'm reading his email here. 71% said that they were really not having worship in their home with their family. 71%. Issues in the bedroom. In other words, there was not sexual intimacy in the home. It's a problem going on there. 82% said that there's issues in the bedroom. Okay. That's how he stated it. And then out of the survey, communication in the home is leading to home breakdown. That's 88%. And then, of course, most said that infidelity is on the rise within the church. So what we're speaking to in men's ministry is the issues that men face, and through sharing our own stories, our own testimony, through sharing data points, we can elicit men to recognize, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
And then to ask the question, what are you going to do?
That's right.
And who are you going to do it with? You're not going to do it alone.
No.
And so this band of brothers idea, the military calling us to arms, is so biblical. You read throughout the Bible, and it's just with that all over the place.
Absolutely.
And I feel like with Blueprint for Men, the blueprint idea is more about, okay, we've got a plan for building.
Yeah.
But the plan is also defending. It's kind of that Nehemiah concept.
Exactly.
And to me, God has perfectly equipped you to be that because of your background in the military, in construction, in ministry. He's calling you.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate where God's leading you in your response.
Amen. Well, it's going to be a journey. It's going to be a fun journey, though. When God leads you on something, there's a lot of joy comes out of it if you look at it the right way. Sometimes it's not all roses.
Right.
When you're fighting the enemy, when you're taking it's not going to be. But you have your protector with you. He'll give you the peace, strength, courage you need to do what you need to do. I do believe that. I've seen it, lived it. Yeah.
Yeah. What we're trying to, like you said a minute ago, we're still figuring things out, but through we hope the wisdom of God, figure out this process where you, James, are going to be reaching out to and going around to local churches here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Wherever God takes you, to get some men's ministry started called Band of Brothers. And through your process, do you have resource or a place for guys to go to check out if they're interested, if they're listening in their local church and maybe they want to reach out to you and see about you coming out there? Because the process we're looking at, just real quick, is you check in, spend time with that local church, and then plug them into the resources with Blueprint for Men as well. We'd love to be able to say the continuum is that first contact with you, then being able to get that ministry started. I know it's not, I know from my experience right now, it's taking time, but it's about patience.
Yeah.
But God can move for sure. But when the time comes, we want guys to, when they're ready, we're ready to help them.
That's
from
right.
our perspective as well. So anyway, say all that. That's what we're working on. But how can guys find you or reach out to you or be able to ask questions about what you offer for churches?
Okay, one of the first things, and we're in the process of building it. It's up. They can go straight to it. We just need to add to it. Is thebandofbrothers.org. That's our website. They can go there. I would like to. I don't mind giving out an email, my personal email. I think there is an email included with. Let me see if you can go to contact. Let's see. What's the email? Contact. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, my son who does my website will be in town this weekend. So I'll make sure the contact information's on there.
Cool.
Right here, I'll give my phone number and an email. If anybody wants to contact me now, I'm fine with that. And I'm here, not only remember I'm pastoral ministry. So if anybody out there needs prayer, they want to, they have similar background, something like that they want to know how I made it through that or whatever, call me. We'll set up a time where we can talk, and I'll share with what I know, and I'll pray with you and see what we can do to help you on your journey, because that's what it's all about. No man left behind. At Brothers, Band of Brothers, we're going to reach our hand back and help pull them up to where we are. And, hey, sometimes maybe push them ahead of where we are. It's not about being ahead of guys. Sometimes God wants them in a path ahead of you, and you pull them up and you push them forward, right? That's the way we're going to do it. And no man left behind. We're going to be a band of brothers that, something that we're going to be so close together, because I do believe Jesus is coming soon.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to have a strong, tight-knit group, because we have the greatest mission the world has ever seen.
Yep.
We are the men that are living in the days right before Jesus comes, and he's calling us to something bigger.
I believe that.
And we can have the best plan in the world, but it's going to be the Holy Spirit and God leading in miraculous ways is going to bring it all about. But he's going to choose the prepared. My wife, I love her, and she has a name, Gale, Gale, which is a nautical term for a wind speed that's just below a hurricane.
Right.
And she's got a lot of passion, and that's what I love about her. But I looked up the word gale, and because it's a nautical term, it says only seasoned sailors can navigate safely outside the harbor in such conditions. And the reason I'm sharing this is that I believe that a lot of what we're doing in men's ministry, calling men up to learn the ropes, to handle the wind of life with God's help, with his peace and assurance through the storm, that's going to allow them to provide the strength for others in what's coming, because the winds of strife are going to be let go pretty soon.
That's right. Hey, with that being said, Mike, you were talking about you're trying to figure out a name for the Ask Marty or whatever. I think I got a better one.
Segment.
Let's go with Ask the Admiral, because we got the seasoned sailor here. Yeah, in the gale forces.
You brought up Navy.
I can only count in hours the amount of time I've been on any kind of boat. So I've never even been on a cruise.
Okay, well,
me either.
But you've been through a few gale force winds, though.
Yeah, for sure.
So James, what contact info do you want to share? We'll make sure it gets placed on our notes as well.
Okay, right now it's St. John, and spell that out, SAINT, JOHN.
Okay.
1415, and that's reference to one of my favorite scriptures, John 14:15. If you love me, keep my commandments. But it's St. John 14:15 at yahoo.com.
Got it.
And then if you got my phone number's fine too, 816
okay
985 1063.
All right, we'll make sure that's included in our show notes. So one thing that just occurred to me as I thought about this, and I know we've talked about this, I wouldn't say backwards and forwards, Marty, but we're beginning to, and that is this process of discipling men. And so the focus that we want to bring through what we're doing, I think this might have even been sparked somewhat from our last conversation we had, our last podcast that we published, when it came to just discipleship. Because I think the process that we're looking at, this continuum, is we're not going to assume churches aren't discipling their men. We're never going to assume a pastor is not discipling his men in his church either. So I know the message I've heard you say a number of times is we're not here to replace a pastoral ministry in a church. We're here to help it and to make sure that if there are gaps, which I hope a pastor realizes there are gaps in his ministry or her ministry.
We should. We're not perfect. I'm coming from
exactly,
ministry.
And that one of those gaps tends to be men's ministry. So we found that out. I found that out in this time that I've been working with Marty. And so what we're working to do is try to get guys checked in locally in a coordinated way with the band of brothers. And so it's through that process of getting to know your brothers in your church even better through an intentional process. That's what Blueprint for Men offers, and a deeper discipleship that happens as well.
That's right.
So that's in a nutshell what we're working to do, and we're going to try to incorporate all of that with our podcasts, our interviews, as we ask questions, as we discover from various men from various stages in life, different expertise, places that they've been, and life experiences. That's what we want to be able to bring to you guys out there in the podcast world. So any final thoughts you want to share with anything, James?
Yeah, I would like to, one thing, you brought up pastors, and I'm just coming out of pastoral ministry. Brothers, if any pastors are watching this, I know what you're going through. I know where you're at. And I'm coming at this band of brothers through a pastor's heart. I know what you need. Sometimes you feel like the Lone Ranger, like you're only doing it. You're the only one doing it. What we want to do is help organize your men, build them up so you can have an army in your local community working with you to finish the mission that God has given you. This is definitely something that we want to help you with. We're not trying to add more work to you. We're actually trying to lighten your workload. So, many hands make light work. And we want to get these men where they need to be mentally, physically, and spiritually, most importantly, to help you finish the work that God has given all of you in that local community. That's really an important aspect of, I want them to understand I'm coming from pastoral, so I get you, bro.
Yeah.
So,
thank you, James.
Yeah. But the last thing is, men, God wants us to allow us to let him do for us what we can't do for ourselves. Submit ourselves to the Creator. He wants us to, he has a vision of the man he wanted Mike, Marty, and James to be. And the more we submit to him, we'll be shaped from the inside out into who he wants us to be, and we can complete the mission that he has given us. And ultimately, what we all want to hear, and then when all is said and done, is well done, good and faithful servant.
Yes.
And the whole idea is to help men get to that point where they are and get them where they can bring others with them, because we're not entering into the kingdom by ourselves. We're going to have to bring at least one person in tow with us.
Yep. That's part of the discipleship process.
Yep. And that's basically the end of it for me as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Was you having our questions? Yeah.
Nope, none from here. So we thank you, everybody, for getting to our podcast today. We hope that you can go over to Apple Podcasts or wherever and rate this podcast and review it. We hope it gets more traction that way. And we hope you can share it. You can subscribe anywhere on the major platforms out there. And we want to get more men educated and just share parts of our lives and other men's lives through this podcast as well. So we appreciate all of our listeners and watchers and guys within ministry. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Blueprint for Men podcast. Men, be strong and courageous and do the work. Don't be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord God, my God, is with you. He won't leave you or abandon you until all the work for the service of the Lord's house is finished. God bless.